Okay.
If you lived in Rome in 80 BC, you would probably hear a name echoing through the forums, public baths, and even in whispers late at night: Sextus Roscius, a son accused of murdering his own father. A shocking case not only for the horror of the crime, but also for the dark political complexities hidden beneath. But what happens when an accused person not only has to fight against the accusations of the law, but also against those who hold absolute power over life and death? And is he truly a cold-blooded parricide, or merely a scapegoat in a power game he knows nothing about? Rome at that time was in the post-Civil War Marius, Sulla period. A time when the Republic was no longer a place of reason and law, but became a stage for bloody purges, proscription lists, and legalized plunder in the name of law. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, the victor of the Civil War, established a temporary dictatorship to restore order. But in reality, it was a time when thousands were placed on proscription lists, where anyone could be accused of treason and have all their property confiscated. In that chaotic scene, the law was merely a fragile mask concealing greed and power. Sextus Roscius, the father, was assassinated on his way home from a party in Rome. Just a few days later, his only son, Sextus Roscius Jr., was accused of being the culprit. It's worth noting that Roscius Sr. was a wealthy landowner in Umbria, owning over 13 vast properties, a tempting prize in the eyes of many. No witnesses, no direct evidence, but the truth was suspiciously clear: the father's entire property was immediately confiscated, then transferred to several figures close to Sulla's government, including Chrysogonus, a freed slave and now an influential figure within the new administration. Surprisingly, no famous lawyer would take the case. In fact, everyone avoided it, knowing that confronting Chrysogonus, the one behind the accusation, was akin to suicide during Sulla's absolute rule. And so, a young man, only about 26 years old, who had never participated in any major defense, dared to take on the case. His name was Marcus Tullius Cicero, a man who would later become a symbol of Roman oratory and reason. With all his audacity, Cicero chose this case as a political springboard, and above all, as a challenge to those who manipulated justice. The case of Sextus Roscius was not just a confrontation between crime and law, but also a shadowy game among forces in the dark, where each character was a chess piece, each testimony a move, and each silence, potentially a death sentence. To understand why the young Sextus Roscius was made a scapegoat, and why Cicero, then an unknown figure, dared to defend him, we must look deep into each core character. Each person is a piece of the bloody Roman tapestry from the post-Civil War period. The portrait of young Sextus Roscius in the accusation was a greedy son who hated his father, and who, wishing to seize the property, murdered his parent. But if one looks closely at the evidence, or more precisely, the lack of it, one will see the absurdity in the entire argument. Young Sextus Roscius was a farmer living in the countryside of Ameria, hundreds of miles from Rome. On the night of the murder, he was not present at the scene. Close family members also confirmed he had no severe conflicts with his father. Most importantly, he received absolutely no property after his father's death. On the contrary, everything was confiscated and sold to others. Cicero at that time was merely an apprentice lawyer, distinguished by his profound scholarship and sharp rhetorical skills. He had studied philosophy and rhetoric in Greece, deeply influenced by the Platonic and Aristotelian schools. But more importantly, Cicero believed in the power of justice and reason. His decision to defend Roscius was an act so reckless it seemed naive in the eyes of many. For merely provoking Chrysogonus, who was protected by Sulla, would be enough to make him disappear from political life forever. But it was precisely that audacity that made Cicero's name. In his oration, Pro Sexto Ratio Amerino, he not only defended Roscius, but also exposed Chrysogonus before the Roman public, something no one had dared to do in that era. Not a nobleman, not a general, Chrysogonus started as a freed slave of Sulla, but after the Civil War, he quickly became the overseer of the proscription lists, the infamous tool used to punish enemies of the state. Chrysogonus held absolute power in determining who was a traitor and whose property was confiscated, and with that power, he created a network of bribery, expropriation, and fabricated accusations to seize vast wealth from noble families. In the Roscius case, he bought all 13 of Roscius Sr.'s properties for just 2,000 sesterces, while the estimated total value could have been up to 250,000 sesterces. A horrific discrepancy, but disguised under the pretense of confiscation for treason. Although not directly appearing in the case, the shadow of Sulla, the temporary dictator, always loomed over every aspect. After his victory against Marius, Sulla created proscription lists with over 1.500 names, whose properties were confiscated without trial. No one dared to oppose Sulla, and Chrysogonus was his extended arm in enforcing the law. What was even more terrifying, killing someone and accusing them of treason required no evidence. Only a name on the proscription list, the case of Roscius Sr., a citizen unrelated to politics, being added to the list after his death, was a testament to the chilling absurdity of justice at that time. Amidst white stone walls, fiery arenas, and the melodious sound of the lyre in the forum, an era once lauded as the pinnacle of civilization had become a place where human lives were cheaper than dust. Roman citizens lived in constant anxiety. Would their name appear on the list tomorrow? In the markets, in the baths, at the theaters, people discussed the Roscius case as a symbol of corruption, a son murdering his father, or a son whose spirit was murdered by the regime. A Rome once proud of its law had now lost all reason and morality, leaving only charades orchestrated by hidden powers. Rome, 80 BC. In the vast marble hall of the courthouse, the murmurs of discussion buzzed like a disturbed beehive. On the raised platform, judges in white togas with purple trim. Below, rows of spectators of all classes, from nobles, lawyers to the curious, slaves, and merchants, jostled for space. No one wanted to miss the trial that was shaking all of Rome. On the defendant's stand, Sextus Roscius Jr., his face gaunt, eyes red from many sleepless nights. Before him, not just the judges, but an empire hungry for power. On the other side, the opponent was not an ordinary prosecutor, but a representative of Lucius Cornelius Chrysogonus, the backstage manipulator, controller of the death lists, and capable of making anyone disappear. And then, Cicero stepped out. Gentlemen, today I do not stand here to defend a criminal, but to defend the very justice of the Roman Republic. If Sextus Roscius is truly guilty, then judge him, but if he is innocent, and yet is sacrificed, then we, those of us sitting here, will be the next victims. Cicero did not begin with legal arguments. He struck directly at the emotions, consciences, and simmering fears in the hearts of those listening. 1. Roscius had no reasonable motive. Cicero proved that Roscius did not hate his father, nor did he benefit from his death. The property did not go to him, but into the hands of Chrysogonus and local accomplices, two individuals who had previously had disputes with Roscius Sr.'s family. Furthermore, at the time of the murder, Roscius was in Ameria, hundreds of miles away, and could not have traveled to Rome, committed the crime, and returned without leaving a trace. 2. The confiscation of property was illegal. Cicero exposed a gruesome truth. Roscius Sr. was not on the official proscription list, but his name was added after his death, an act completely against the law. This was unprecedented, and it proved that Roscius Sr.'s death was the first step in a conspiracy to seize property. Chrysogonus had exploited his position to manipulate the proscription lists, then used them as a passport to appropriate 13 properties. 3. Who was the real killer? Cicero did not hesitate to name two accomplices from Ameria, Capito and Magnus, who had previously had land disputes with Roscius Sr. It was they who sent word to Rome to accuse young Roscius, and then helped Chrysogonus with the proscription procedures. He asked, why did these two, who had long-standing conflicts with Roscius Sr., suddenly become so eager to assist justice? And why did Chrysogonus, who had never known the Roscius family, quickly buy all the property just days after the death? The cleverness of Cicero was that he never attacked Sulla, the reigning dictator. Instead, he separated Chrysogonus from Sulla, implying that this former slave had abused the dictator's trust for his own private gain. Master Sulla is the one who fought to re-establish order, Cicero said, but if that very order is exploited by others in its name for profit, then that is the worst betrayal. This argument was not only astute but also profoundly impressed the judging panel, who were wary of touching supreme power. Throughout 3 hours of oration, Cicero guided the audience's emotions like a stage director. When he spoke of the image of young Sextus Roscius, living each day in fear, weeping for his father without being able to mourn at his tomb, the courtroom fell silent. Some bowed their heads to avoid eye contact. Others secretly wiped away tears. An old woman at the back, who had known the Rochus family, burst into uncontrollable sobs. In that moment, people no longer saw an accused man, but a human being pushed to the deepest depths of injustice. The prosecutor, when invited to rebut, only read a short indictment. Repeating old arguments, offering no new evidence, this only further exposed the emptiness of the accusation. When Cicero concluded, the panel of judges fell silent. The entire courtroom was also silent. It was understood that, whether Rochus was guilty or not, if the court acquitted him today, it would not just be a verdict for one person, but an affirmation that justice still existed in Rome. The atmosphere in the courtroom at that moment seemed to freeze. Everyone appeared to hold their breath, as if even a slight movement could shatter the fragile situation. Then, the verdict was announced. Sextus Rochus, innocent. Just 2 words, but like thunder echoing directly into the heart of the Roman Empire. No one could believe that an unknown young man from Ameria, under the protection of a young, untested lawyer, could prevail in a trial where death, deceit, and political power dominated the entire stage. And then, the consequences began to pour out, like waves following one another, breaking apart the wall of trust and fear that had been built up over many years. In the piazzas, agricultural markets, bakeries, and even in crowded taverns, the name Rochus was whispered amidst the clinking of spoons, the shouts of dice players, and the melodious flutes of street performers. So, is justice not dead after all? Or just another play by the elite? People began to look at the law with different eyes, no longer an absolute banner of righteousness, but a weapon that could be abused, steered by those with enough money and power. The story of Cicero's defense speech was hand-copied, orally transmitted, and even reenacted as plays in small theaters. His sharp remarks, incisive arguments, and courage sent shivers of admiration through the intellectual class. But from then on, Cicero came under scrutiny. To the conservative aristocracy, he was a challenger of order, a young man who dared to openly attack a system that had operated for generations. To the reformist faction, he was a beacon of hope, the one who dared to speak the truth amidst a court full of deceit. And Chrysogonus? He disappeared from public view. No one saw him after the verdict. It was rumored that he was exiled or forced to withdraw to avoid further turbulence for Sulla's regime. Whatever the case, his name became a symbol of power manipulating justice, and proof that, no matter how strong a force, it can be pierced by the truth. For young Sextus Rochus, though acquitted, the price he paid was a shattered life. His father was dead, irreplaceable. His property was seized, not easily recovered in a time when law was twisted. Many acquaintances avoided him as if misfortune still clung to him. And above all, the suspicion that still lingered in society. Was he truly innocent? Or just cleverly defended? In ancient Rome, where honor was more precious than life itself, even a small blemish could follow a person throughout their life. However, within the hearts of the people, a new belief was kindled. They began to believe that they could still fight for the truth, still confront powerful forces, if they possessed enough reason, courage, and a strong voice. Cicero, with that defense, did not just save one person. He ignited a sense of legal awareness among the people. He proved that the law is not merely a sword in the hands of the state, but also a shield for the weak. That saying, though not recorded verbatim, became an inspiration, so that later, whenever someone entered the courthouse, they remembered the young lawyer who once made all of Rome listen in awe. The Rochus case was like a mirror reflecting the rot within Roman society during Sulla's time, an empire once proud of its republic, but which killed people without trial. A legal system once considered standard, but which was transformed into a tool of purging. Honest citizens were pushed into the shadows, while villains sat casually on thrones of power. All this made the Romans ask a big question: what is justice? And who holds it? Some trials simply ended with a verdict, but there were also trials, like the Rochus case, that left aftershocks lasting for centuries, extending beyond the courtroom to touch the very ideological foundations of civilization. And strangely enough, a case that seemed to revolve only around the death of a father, the accusation of a son, and the intervention of a political power, became a symbol of legal awakening. Looking back now, we see that the Sextus Rochus case was not merely a fight to reclaim personal honor. It was a warning about the fragility of justice, a rare legacy for posterity on how a person can stand up against an unjust system. solely with intellect and courage. One thing is undeniable. Cicero's defense in the Roscius case became a classic of Roman rhetoric and legal thought. It was taught for centuries in philosophy and law schools, and became the foundation for many concepts of human rights, the right to a fair trial, and the role of lawyers in the rule of law. The Roscius story raised fundamental questions. Who has the right to accuse? Does justice still hold true meaning if manipulated by political interests? Is law, form or substance, a tool of governance or a common belief? And it was through this case that Rome, and later the entire Western world, began to discuss law as a moral value, not just a system of rules. Sextus Roscius left few records after the trial. He withdrew from public life, living in reclusion in Ameria, but his image, a son accused of parricide, then acquitted, entered history as a symbol of a victim falsely accused by power. As for Cicero, this trial was a turning point. From an unknown young man, he became the voice of justice and wisdom, gradually embarking on a political path, and would later become one of Rome's most influential philosopher-politicians. The Roscius story was not merely a legal event. It was proof that, if only one person dares to speak up, the truth still has a chance to be heard. This case was one of the first times in Roman history that a citizen dared to publicly accuse a figure close to Sulla's government. It set a precedent for impartial trials, regardless of the accused's political connections. It inspired future legislators to protect the right to defense and combat the abuse of proscription lists, which were essentially legal guillotines during Sulla's era. In that context, the Roscius case became a milestone when Rome looked back at itself. The question arises, how far has justice progressed today, and do modern chrysogonous figures still exist? Although there are no longer public death lists in many societies, individuals are still ensnared in legal troubles due to political and economic motives. There are still new Roscius figures, innocent people accused, losing their honor, careers, and even their lives, for becoming obstacles to certain powers. And we still need new Ciceros, those who dare to speak up for the truth, regardless of threats, isolation, or sacrificing their own careers. The truth, as usual, may have been buried with those who kept secrets. As for us, the tellers and the listeners, we can only imagine, piece together the fragments, and ask ourselves, what happened behind that curtain of justice? Perhaps, Roscius was not entirely innocent? Or did the Roman legal system simply choose to do the right thing just once, then return to darkness?